Hey world, this is Will Sullivan and the Web Design Standards team. We are here with our first pilot broadcast in our 4th of July sprint week, or bi-week, double week, 2 weeks together. This is the first in a series of live stream demos we're going to try and do on the Web Design Standards work, following in the tradition of the eRegs team, which started out that John and I actually worked on, both live streaming our demos to share out the work that we do on the open source platform. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to do a quick presentation, toss to folks. And yes, so this is the pilot stream. You can follow our work at standards.usa.gov. We have a Slack channel where you can ask us questions, ask other people in the community. There's over 200 people rocking in that community. It's one of the biggest at 18F now, so that's super cool. And that's where you can find us and ask questions for the future. This project was founded out of 18F and the US Digital Services. Just for a little background on the US Web Design Standards. There's more than 100 government websites currently using it, and it's growing every day, from the EPA to vets.gov. It's an open source platform, so you can take the code and use as much or as little as you would like. We are here to help serve you and improve things. So if you see issues or need things fixed, please feel free to submit GitHub issues or ask us questions, or in our Slack or through email. Both of those will be at the end of this presentation also. And we will continue to try and improve and build this out to make it better for everybody. And again, like I mentioned, there's many different websites. You can see the whole list on standards.usa.gov. But since we're running a little behind, I'm going to toss it to John to talk about some of the work that he did. Take it away, John.
All right. Hi, everyone. So this week we did a couple different things. We're sort of doing a lot of refactoring, a lot of stuff behind the scenes to create a better future for the standards. And one of the things we started working on was Ryan Thurwell, our visual designer on the team, started putting together a new homepage design with some new visual styles here. We had been running with the branding that was associated with our 1.0 launch, but now that we've had a couple iterations since then, we're looking for something that's a little bit more release neutral, I guess. So yeah, you can check this out. This is going to be bundled in our release that we plan to do early next week, which is another thing that our team has worked on recently, is trying to figure out like what is the best consistent release process that we can go with. And we're going to shoot for doing something where right now we do these demos on a Friday, and there's this time period gap between Friday when the demos happen and then Monday when we start planning our next sprint. So the idea will be things that we talk about now, we'll work on bundling together in a release for both the documentation site and the actual web design standards package. And so you should see this coming soon. There's a few new pieces of content on this too. Let's see if I can remember all of them in news and updates. We have one or two, I forget how many of these. I think this might be the only new one, but we got a new Q&A up that Andrea worked on with the vets.gov team, talking about how they use the standards. So be sure to check that out when that comes out upon the site launching. Some of the other things we did, you may have seen this already. We've had this, we've been using Fractal to build out a component site. And so this is like an easy way for developers to see some code examples and also play with them, see what happens to them when they go small or big. Have this little slider here so you can actually adjust and play with these in that context and see different screen sizes. I guess header is probably a good example. Here we go. We can bundle these together in different packages so you can see this is mobile view. So that's good. And yeah, so this, the notable part about this is it's always kind of existed behind the scenes, but you had to build it locally on your machine. So now we have an actual URL here, components.standards.usa.gov, where you can go to the site, see all of our components, and We can also kind of use this as a playground. So when we're adding new components, this is our test bed. It's a neutral place where we can build up different combinations of components. Like here we have some accordions that exist inside of a page, and really do kind of whatever we need to do to test out our process. And then, yeah, so one of the last things, just to kind of see like what it's like to add new components. This will be coming pretty soon, but we've had some, we didn't have grid stuff listed here, so I actually went through the process yesterday of adding a grid example to this, and probably going to break this out into some separate sections here. Right now it's all under one, but as you see, like headers had different examples of headers. But the main reason we wanted to do this was because we had a contribution from somebody in the community to add grid offsets. So this had been added a while ago, but we didn't have a documentation or example or anything to go with it. So I added down here, you can actually see like you have these offset classes, and then that will shift the container or whatever you're using inside the grid, you can shift it a certain portion across the screen. So that will be coming soon. And I think that's about all for me.
Excellent. We will toss it to Atul now.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, you can hear me okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Yeah, so we did a number of things. One is that previously we had a password, a reset password example in our documentation, but we didn't actually document how to specify different validation conditions, because one of the things that we've always had in our password reset example is this neat thing where as you type and satisfy certain conditions for the password, like must have at least one uppercase letter, must have one number character, like the check marks sort of appear in real time as you satisfy those constraints. And so now we've actually separately documented this validation component, which is actually what that reset password example is using, and we fully document it here. So it explains exactly how to set up your own constraints for any kind of data that you want the user to enter. I mean, we've used it with the reset password example, but you can really use it for any kind of situation where you need the user to type in text that satisfies a certain criteria, and you want to give them real-time feedback on whether what they've typed in is acceptable or not. So there's that. Another thing is that the 18F method card site, it uses the web design standards, but they actually found a bug in the standards, which was that they've got these navigation menus, and all of these entries in it, they actually just point to different places on the same page. They found that when they did this, this menu did not collapse after they clicked on a place to go, because it wasn't because we had coded these with the assumption that clicking on one of these would always take you to a new page. And that new page reload would just make this nav menu disappear by virtue of being a new page reload. But we now have some code in there so that these nav menus actually do collapse whenever someone clicks something. So that if you have intra-page links rather than inter-page links, everything will behave as you expect. Another thing that I can't demo here because it is actually impossible for me to demo it on this particular computer is that we had a bug where if you were on a computer that had both a touch screen and a mouse, such as a Windows Surface, the accordions would not work with the mouse because we had some logic that basically assumed that you were either on something like an iPad or on something like a laptop, but not on something that could support both of those. And so we detected that if your laptop supported had a touch screen, we then we just started ignoring mouse events. But now we've changed that. so that accordions basically work fine on computers that have both touchscreens and mice, which basically means a number of sort of high-end Windows machines will accordions will start working again on. Big special thanks to Jim Frankowski for helping us debug that and figure out exactly what was going on there. And then let me see here. A number of things, yeah, some other things that I can't show visibly here. The documentation site, the build time and reliability of developing on the doc site is improved. So it should be easier for contributors to easily, rapidly iterate on the content and things like that. We're now running some of our documentation pages through a tool called Axe Core, which is an accessibility tool, and that'll help us ensure that we don't have any accessibility regressions. We're also running 404 link checkers on the docs to make sure there aren't any dead links on them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Did you want me to also show Marco's stuff, or is Marco able to show his stuff?
I can do it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. On to Marco.
Hello. Can you all hear? Yep.
Yep.
So hi, I'm Marco. I'm a new front-end developer on the standards, and this week I worked on some documentation. So we found that developers, when trying to extend our JavaScript for our components, there wasn't a whole lot of guidance on how to do that, and so we realized that we actually needed to write a little bit of guidance, and so I created a documentation section. This is in the Getting Started section of the site under For Developers. And there's a section called JS Customization. It talks about how to actually bring in the standards so you can actually customize it through a build process, which is something that we hope to make easier at some point. It goes over a little bit of the architecture of the components and the JavaScript, and goes over a few of the methods that you'll use to actually customize. So with this, we hope that people will, find it easier to customize the standards JavaScript and do things that they need that aren't, part of the main block of the standards right now. And I think that's it for now for me.
Well, the tool has one more thing if you didn't see it, if you want to throw back to him.
Yeah, go ahead, Tool.
Sure. Okay, can you see my screen again? Hopefully.
Not yet. Gotta
Okay.
reshare it, I guess.
It says I'm presenting. Okay, here we go. Share. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, the one other thing is that so previously, in order to tinker at all with the SAS files for the standards, you would have to actually get our code through NPM using Node.js and run our whole build process to build the SAS files. That was challenging for some folks who didn't have access to Node on their federal computers, and it turns out actually that Dreamweaver and I know there's also some open source tools out there, like there's something called CodeKit. I don't think that one's open source, but also something called Koala, and all of those tools are tools for folks that are more comfortable with the graphical user interface, that don't do command line stuff, and they all support SAS. And so it was challenging for those folks to be able to tinker with our SAS, which is important because that's like it's really the easiest way if you want to change colors and fonts and stuff, is really to go down to the SAS level. And so from now on, we'll be putting, when you open up our zip file, there's now going to be an SCSS directory, and inside that is all the SAS. And you should be able to just easily open that up in Dreamweaver or Koala or CodeKit, or even just use the Ruby SAS command line client to play around with our SaaS. You won't have to use npm anymore, which lowers the barrier to entry for that. So that's nice. Yep, that's it.
Okay, excellent. So that will conclude our first pilot sprint. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. Feel free to send feedback at our Slack channel or email. Look at all these links and things and fun things. You can use our code, chat with us on Slack, email us at this really long email address, but please do not sign us up for any spam. We've been getting inundated by so much. Erica and Denise, we know who you are. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back in 2 weeks on Friday, July 28th, likely with more things to show and more ways to interact with us. But in the meantime, you can contact us on all these channels. And thanks, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.